Hi guys, welcome to Piece of Code and welcome to this video. So in this video we are going to start with a new chapter in our OCA preparation series, which is basically chapter 3, which is core Java APIs. This is going to be a very interesting chapter because we are going to learn about a lot of Java APIs, which is very beneficial to you as a Java programmer, as well as it is very beneficial if you are appearing for Oracle certification exam, right? So in this chapter we are going to see creating and manipulating strings, right? We are going to learn about strings. We are going to see the string builder class, which is very, very important. We are going to see about understanding equality, because there is a very high chances that you are going to get questions from equals and that double equals to operator. We are going to see and understand a very in-depth knowledge about it, right? Then we are going to see about arrays. We are going to see single and multi-dimensional arrays in depth. We are going to see array list. Actually, this comes under the collections framework. But the thing is, in your OCA exam, most of the questions from the collection framework is going to be coming from the array list, collection. So that's why we are going to cover this in this particular chapter. Then we are going to talk about dates and times. We're going to see how you can manipulate dates and times using the new Java date API, local date time, and everything. All these classes we are going to see, and at the end we are going to wrap it up with some summary and some exam questions which are expected. Alright, let's dive into it with this first lecture in this chapter 3. So in this particular lecture we are going to see what are strings and how we can create strings. We are going to see about concatenation of strings. We are going to see what is immutable property of strings, right? Why are strings immutable? And we are going to see examples of immutability. We are going to see about the string pool, which is very important to understand, because there is a kind of difference when we create strings, and you're going to understand it only if you understand about the string pool. Then we're going to talk about important string methods like toUpperCase, toLowerCase, charAt, indexOf, last indexOf, and everything. We're going to talk about method chaining, like how you can use multiple methods together while dealing with strings, right? Let's get on to it. Now, talking about strings, right? Strings are basically a very fundamental class. And remember one thing, string is not a primitive data type. Please never ever make this mistake of considering string as a data type. It is a class. The string is a very fundamental class that you're going to use most of the times. You cannot even write the main method without using string, right? Because we pass a array of strings as a parameter inside the main method, right? So you are going to deal with strings maximum times when you're going to learn, when you're going to deal with Java. And also in the exam you're going to see a lot of questions regarding strings. Now, while talking about creating a string, it is very easy to create a string. This is method number 1 of creating the string, and this is method number 2 of creating the string. The first method is pretty easy. So you just say, okay, string, then the variable name and equals to variable, like a collection of characters, because a string is a collection of characters enclosed within double quotation. So remember, never ever give the single quotation, because you give the single quotation for a character like A. But if you are going to talk about a string, then we are going to talk about double quotations like this. Alright, now this is a very basic way of creating a string. Basically just assign a string value to a variable name and you just specify the type as a string. Right, this is very, very basic. Now considering this technique, this also creates a string named Fluffy. So the value in this both cases will be the same, Fluffy. But in this case we are going to use a new keyword, which is basically, if you remember, we use the new keyword to create an object of a class. Now it makes sense, right? Because string is a class, and when you're going to create a string value, you are actually creating an object. So this also makes sense. So this technique also creates a new string Fluffy like this. But there is a basic difference between these two techniques. We are going to learn that when we are going to learn about string pools, right? So just to wait till that point. But for now, just understand, for now you can create strings any of these methods, using any of these methods. Cool? Makes sense? Alright. Now let us talk about concatenation, right? Let me just go to my Eclipse and let me create a new class over here, and let me create a new package, actually new package, and let us name this package as strings, right? And let us create a new class inside this, and let us say strings demo public static void main, and click on finish, right? So in our second chapter, right, we have also talked about a little bit about concatenation. Now you have also talked about like how to add numbers, like how do you add numbers? Int x equals to 1 plus 2, right? This is how you add numbers. But what about 1 plus 2? Now this statement is different from this statement. Let me just write it in a second line like this, because in this case we are adding two numbers, so the value of those two numbers are getting added. In this case it will be 3, right? And but in this case it will be 13, because this is string concatenation. When we are going to use the plus operator with strings, we are actually concatenating both of those strings, like joining both of the strings. When we are going to use the plus operator with numbers, we are actually adding those two numbers. So make sure you understand the difference, because the OCA exam, they like this operator really much and they try to trick you all the time, right? Now let me tell you some rules regarding concatenation, right? And it is very, very important that you understand these rules. Let us talk about the first rule, and the first rule goes like this. And the first rule goes something like this: if both operands are numeric, and I have already talked about this, plus means addition, and as for example 1 plus 2 equals to 3, right? Now the second rule is like this rule that I have just showed you an example, right? So this rule says like if any operand or either operand, whatever word you want, you can just use it. The main thing is you just understand about it, right? If any operand is a string, so plus means concatenation. Now you may ask a question, okay, so in this example you told, okay, both of these are strings, so the output is a string. But in this rule you said that, okay, if any of the particular number is or operand is a string, then the answer is practically a string. Yes, that is true. So if I say 10 plus 22, then do you know what the answer will be? The answer will be 1022, because it follows this particular rule. If any operand is a string, plus means concatenation. So just remember one thing, that if you have any kind of string variable and you are adding it to another operand, then basically the output will be a string, right? That is why the plus means concatenation in this case, right? Now the third rule goes like, the expression is evaluated left to right, and this is basically same for all expressions, right? I don't think I need to explain this, because we have already learned in operators that the whatever expression you are actually seeing, it is getting evaluated from left to right, so it makes sense. So let us see some examples right away. Okay, now don't get confused with this rule, guys. It only applies if you are storing the data in a string or you are using it in a system.out.println. So basically this will work. Let me give an example. So if I do string x equals to 1 plus 2, then this will work, because ultimately what is happening, as the output of both of this as a string, then you can store it in a string, right? Because the output is 12, so we can store it as a string because it is a string. But this is not possible. Int y equals to 2 plus 1. This is not at all possible, because it doesn't make any sense, because the output is a string. How can you will be able to store it in a integer, right? So this is not possible. So make sure you understand the difference, right? Because if any one of it is a string and you are concatenating with another operand, then the output is a string, so you can store it in a string. But this is not possible, so make sure you don't fall for this thing. Okay, let's see some examples of this thing, right? Let us write a couple of sysout statements and do some stuff. So 1 plus 2, let me copy this right for 3 more times. Oh shit, IntelliJ, I've been using a lot of IntelliJ and I have that habit of using Control plus D, and but in Control plus D in Eclipse is just deleting the line, my bad. Okay, I haven't copied it. Okay, 2 3 4. So 1 plus 2, then let us take a plus b, then let us try a plus b, b plus 3, something like this, and let us try this thing, 1 plus 2 plus c. Now yeah, this kind of questions may come in the OCA exam. So let us run this code, and okay, there's some issue. Let us run as Java application. So see the output in this case, because both of them are integers, so plus means addition, so you get 3 over here. Here both are strings, so you get AB. Here you see more than one operand is a string, so basically it is a string, so AB3 and then 3C, right? So I don't think I need to explain much about it because it is quite simple, right? Now let us see another example. Int 3 equals to 3, string 4 equals to 4, and if I do this thing, now this kind of questions may come in the exam and try to trick you. You'll think that okay, we are adding 2 different type of operands, but if you see clearly, one of it is a string, so it is basically concatenation. Now 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4. Now if you see the output, then it comes 64, right? Now how is it 64? So this is a little bit tricky, right? So you see here we have 3, so 1 plus 2 is 3, then plus 3 is an integer, so 3 plus 3 is 6, and then you concatenate a 4 with it, so it is 64. So this particular expression, 1 plus 2 plus 3 will give you 6, right? And then so 6, then after that 6 plus 4 will give you what? 64. As I've told you, right, the expressions is evaluated from left to right. So we go from here. So we first encounter 2 operands which are integers, and then this is also an integer. So we just basically these 2 plus operators are basically for addition, and then we get a string. So basically here we are concatenating at the end. So that's why we are getting 64 as the answer. Okay. Now there is only one more thing to know about concatenation, but it is an easy one, and it is a very easy rule, and you need to remember it. Actually, don't remember it, you will practice it, and it will just come to you naturally. In this example, you have to remember what this thing does. What this thing means, plus equals to. Okay. Now, plus equals to, you have already known that it is a shorthand operator, right? So basically, if I do s plus equals to 2, so basically it means s equals to s plus 2, right? Makes sense. So if I take an example, string s equals to 1, then if I take s plus equals to 2, and then if I do s plus equals to 3, and then if I do sysout s, then it is pretty easy to understand that first of all s holds 1, then you just add 2 to it, not add, actually concatenate 2 to it, so it becomes 1 2. Then here 3 is also concatenated, right, because obviously one of the operands is string, so 1 2 plus 3, it becomes 1 2 3. So at the end we are going to get the output as 1 2 3. Makes sense? That is the output, right? Okay. Now guys, let us talk about a very important topic about immutability. So when we are going to talk about immutability, right, what does immutability in general terms mean? immutability literally means that cannot be changed. So it means that once you create something, it cannot be changed. That is the simple term about immutability. So what does this actually refer to a string? So it means that once a string object is created, it is not allowed to change. So it's already there, cannot do anything about it. So you cannot change it. It cannot be made larger or smaller, and you cannot change one of the characters inside it. Basically, if you create a string A, B, C, then you cannot add a character and basically make it A, B, C, D. Now it will make some confusion if you say, okay, what happened here? What happened here then? What happened in this case? Now it is a very confusing thing to understand that okay, we are actually adding this 2 to the current string 1, but that is not actually what is happening. If you are going to go into a deep dive into it, then this is what is happening. So if I say string A, S equals to A, and if I do S equals to S plus B, then what is happening in this case is that this B is actually not being added to A, but on the contrary, this S plus B is a new string. It is a new string and it is being reassigned to that particular variable S. So it is being reassigned. So we are actually not updating the same string, but we are creating a new string. And it also makes sense, right? If this was the case that we can directly add B to the S, then this step is actually not required, right? This step alone would have been enough. But if you do only this step, then B will not be added, because the new string you are not storing it anywhere and you cannot actually modify the current string S. So you need to reassign it every time. So you are reassigning. So that is why string is immutable, right? And for the OCA exam, you just need to know that string is immutable. You don't need to know about like what is immutability and everything. But to make things a little bit more clearer, let us talk about immutable classes or immutable objects. Now let me create one class and let me name it mutable class. So mutable, let us name it as mutable, or let us mutable class, and let us create it, right? And here I'm going to create a string variable, for example private string S, right? Simple as that. So that's just a normal class variable I have created, and I'm going to create a setter method for it, right? So I'm just going to say public void, I'm just going to insert it. I'm very lazy actually. I'm not going to write the whole setter method. I'm just going to say Control Alt S, and I'm just going to say generate getters and setters, and I'm just going to select this, and I need what generate. All right, I don't want the getter. Okay, let's keep the getter. So here you can see I have generated a setter method and I have generated a getter method, getS and setS, right? Now if you have a setter method, right, so setS, if you are going to talk about this thing, this makes it mutable. Actually it doesn't make the string class mutable, but it makes your mutable class mutable. It means that you can actually change something in this particular class. You can change this string S. So there was a certain value which was assigned to S. Now you can reassign the value, right? You can change it. But in our case, we have to make it immutable, right? We cannot change something in a class. How do we make something that cannot be changed in a class? Let us see an example. I'm going to create another class over here and I'm going to name it immutable class. Immutable class, right? And I'm just going to click on finish, and in this class I'm also going to create a new string, but I'm going to assign a value to it, private string S equals to, or S equals to Akash. right? That's my name. It's a cool name, right? And then I'm just going to create one thing, that is a getter method. That's it. So public string get s, and I'm just going to return this dot s, right? Simple as that. In this case, if you see, there is no way that we can change this s variable in this class, right? Basically that s is immutable, we cannot change it. The only thing that we can do is basically we can fetch its value. Now immutability comes in various forms, right? How can you make a certain class so that its elements can only be reassigned but it cannot change anything, right? And there are certain ways in which you can do that. This is a very simple example, but to make advanced immutable classes, there are ways. You can create like the final class, and you can just remove all the setter methods, just create a constructor. So these are all the ways in which you can make an immutable class, but that is out of scope for the exam, and that really you will not use that much in your day-to-day scenarios. So this was just an example to show you what is the difference between a mutable class here, where we can set the value of s in this case, and an immutable class where we cannot set the value of s once it has been assigned a value, right? So just an example of mutable and immutable classes. That's it, right? So yep, as I've told you, you can make certain changes, right? You can just make certain changes, like final, you can make it final class immutable, like I have told, right? So yep, so that's it. That's all about mutable and immutable classes. Now let us talk about string pools, and it is very, very important that you understand about string pools. Alright, so what is a string pool? And it kind of sounds like a pool, like a water pool, right? And it's actually how it is just a pool. So we saw two ways of creating strings, right? So now let us create two strings using the different techniques. So let us create a string a equals to abc, all right, and let us create a string b equals to also abc, and also let us create a string c equals to new string, and let us create abc, right? That's how it is. Now let us see the difference. Now for the time being, forget about this thing, forget about that I have written something over here, concentrate about these two statements. Now let us consider that there is a string pool, which is just a pool of strings, right? Just kind of a pool of strings. So what happens in a string pool? When you create string a equals to abc, so you create a variable a and you create a abc, right? That string goes into a string pool. That's what happens. When you create a string b which has the same value abc, so you create a new variable b, but it points to the same value which is abc. So both a and b are pointing to the same value which is abc, right? So no new string is actually created for your new variable. That's what it means. Now let us concentrate on this thing over here. Now remember, when you use the new keyword, right, what happens when you use the new keyword? New object gets created, right? Makes sense? New object gets created, right? Doesn't even have to think about it. New object gets created. So whenever you are going to use a new string, like new class name, right, new string, a new object will get created. So C will have a different pointer to abc. So you can say that even though the values abc are same, this is actually a different object and this is a different object, right? That's what you mean by string pools. Now if you are going to put it in a little bit technical terms, the former, so this is the former, right? So former technique, and this is the latter technique, former and latter. Books like to use this terminology, so I am using that terminology. So the former say that to use a string pool normally, So this is how the string pool is being used. But the second technique, or the latter technique, this is the latter, right? The latter technique says that no, not at all, I will not let you use the string pool at all. To hell with it. So I say, okay JVM, I really don't want you to use the string pool. Please create a new object for me, even though it is less efficient. Now you understanding, right, what I mean and why am I saying less efficient? And it also makes sense why it is less efficient. Why will you create a new object for the same value, and why will you write a little bit more lines of code for the same thing? Doesn't make any sense. So always remember, I prefer the former technique. This is the former technique. Prefer this technique when you are creating strings, not this technique. Even though it still exists, you just know about it, and yeah, that is how it goes, right? That was about string pools. And this actually, if you understand this concept very clearly, right, you will be able to master equality in strings. And actually you can also kind of gather your knowledge, right? Okay, this is how equality is going to differ, but we are not going to cover equality right now. But when I'm going to cover equality, I'm going to refer to these technique and these concepts. So make sure you understand this in depth. If you have any questions, please put it down in the comments. Right, so this was all about string pools. Makes sense? Now let us move to some important string methods, right? And let me give you a summary of some important string methods. Okay, what is this? So this is the string methods. So there are a lot of methods, but I've chosen some of the important string methods. So here is the length method, the charAt method, indexOf, substring, toLowerCase and upperCase, equals and equalsIgoreCase, startsWith, endsWith, contains, replace and trim. We're going to see an overview of how these methods work, and then we are going to be done with our session. Alright, now let us go over here and let me create a new class over here, and let me name it as string methods, right? And let's take a public static void main. And the first method that we are going to see is the length method, and it makes sense. What is the spelling? Length, right? And it makes sense. Length method will actually give you the size of the array or the length of the array, right? So if you have this particular thing, string s equals to Akash, I don't know, I just feel like my name is cool. So if I do sys out s dot length, so that s dot length will actually return you the length of the string. So you can store it in an integer variable also. Now what is the size of my array or the length of my array? It is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Basically the number of characters that you are having in your array, in your particular string. So it will be how much? 6 characters long. So if I just run this code, run as Java application, then you can see the output is 6. Alright, so this was the length method. Let us see the charAt method. charAt method, as the name suggests, is to get a character at a specific index position. Why am I saying index position? Why am I saying index position and not something else? Let me just remove all these things. Let me remove all these things. It has made the whiteboard cluttered, right? All right. So if I create a string Akash and it goes like this, so it makes sense, right, that the indexing starts from 0 and goes till n minus 1, where n is the length of the string. So if L equals to 6, then index will start with 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, where each index refers to a specific character in your string. So if I say character at 3, then 0, 1, 2, 3, which will refer to the A character. So I'm going to get A as the character. Simple as that. Now let us see this in action. Now let us take another string. Let me name it as S. You know what? Let us reassign the same string. So S equals to animals, and let us do this thing. s dot character at, and let us take the index as 0, and s dot character at, let us take the index at 6, right? So you can just think about it, right? So at 0th position we have a, and at 6th position 0 1 2 3 4 5 6 we have s. So it should return a, and this should return s. So a and s if we are getting as output. Alright, let us see the next method, indexOf method. So indexOf is actually kind of the opposite of character at. In character at you supply the index and you get the character at that index, but in indexOf you supply the character or the string and you get that particular index of that particular character or that string. Right, now actually indexOf has specific function signatures. It is a overloaded method which has a couple of function signatures. Let us see each variation one by one. So we have that string s, right, which is animals. Let us make it small a, right, and let us try out the indexOf function variations, right? Oh, so let me write a sysout and let us say s dot indexOf, and that is the basic variation where you just pass in a character or a string and you will get the index of that particular character. In this case, when we are going to go with character a, now it will return 0. Why 0? Because that is the first index where this character is found, right? So whenever you're going to use indexOf and you are passing in a string or a character, it will give you the first occurrence of that character, and the first occurrence is at index position 0. So we are going to get the value as 0 in this case. Alright, so if I do sysout s dot indexOf, for example al, as I've told you, right, indexOf also takes in strings as arguments, so you can also find out that where that particular string starts at that index. So al is in this position. So at what position al starts? So 0 1 2 3 4. So basically this output will be 4. Now let us see another variation. I'm just going to say s dot indexOf, and I'm going to pass in a character and I'm going to pass in 4. Now this the hell, strings demo, string methods. Okay, so a4. Now what does this thing mean is basically it means that this is the start index or from index. It means that search for this character a, what index position it belongs to, and start from this index. So we are going to start from 4. So 0 1 2 3 4. So we are going to start from here and we are going to search this particular string only. And in ALS we are going to see that okay, we are going to starting from 4 and the first occurrence is 4 only, right, because A is present at index number 4 and we are also starting from 4, right? So this is the from index. Now let us see another variation. If we do this thing, s dot indexOf, for example al, and I give the start position or the start index as 5, can you guess what will be the output? So the previous output was 4. So al basically starts from index number 4, right? It starts from 4, but I have given the starting index as 5, so it will start searching from this point, because this is the index number 5. It will start from that point. So there is no al over here, there is only ls. Had I started from index number 4 as the starting index, then we have got al at index number 4, but as we have started from 5, al is not present, right? So this case we are going to get -1. So whenever if you pass something, a character or a string, and it is not present in that string or from that from index, then it will return -1 as output. Cool? Okay, now let us move forward, and actually, you know what, let us just see this output. So 0 4 4 -1, so you can see it over here. Okay, All right, let us move on to the next what was the next one? Substring, right? It was substring. Let us move on to substring, and it is also a very easy thing. Let me actually just give a new sysout statement so that it kind of separates the output. Substring example. Now substring has two variations or two overloaded methods. That is important. Let us see an example. So we already have a string s, right? If I do sysout, so what is a substring actually? Let us first discuss that. So we have animals, and basically you want to extract a substring from that particular substring. So what can be a substring? Substring is a part of that particular string. So it can be NIM. If I see NIM is also a substring. Animals is also a substring because the string is actually a substring of itself. If you have learned about set theory, then it is, you can relate to it. LS is also a substring because it is a substring or a sub part of that particular string, right? That is what a substring means, right? So I hope you are clear with what substrings are. Now if I write this code and I say s dot substring, and if I pass the begin index as 3, what do you think will be the output? So what I am saying in this case that is, I have this string animals, right? It is better to show you over here. Animals, and it has index 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now I am saying, okay, the s dot substring 3. So I am saying, okay, extract a substring starting from index number 3. So starting from index number 3, extract a substring which is basically this substring, right? So the substring will be mals, right? Because that is the substring starting from 3. Let us see another example. Let us see this thing. Let us see a combination of substring and indexOf. If I do s dot indexOf, s dot substring s dot indexOf, and if I say indexOf m, right? If I do this thing, then what do you think will be the output? First of all, s dot indexOf m, what will it return? 0, 1, 2, 3. So it will return 3. Then s dot substring 3. So it will the same output, mals, that we saw over here, right? From 3 we are getting this substring. Let us see this particular example, which is sysout, and I'm doing this thing s dot substring, and let us take 3, 4, right? Now this is where we are giving a starting index and ending index. Actually, let us make it a little bit more simple and let us give 2, 4 so that you will understand. So I want a string or a substring that starts from 2 and goes till 4, where 4 is the open brackets. Open bracket means don't include 4. So in simple terms, I want a string which starts from 2 and goes till 4, where 4 is the open bracket. So it will not include 4, it will go till 3. So when you do substring x comma y, where x is the begin index and y is the ending index, so it will always extract the string from starting index or beginning index till ending index -1. In this case, we had given 2, 4, right? 2, 4 we have given. So it will extract the particular string from 2 to 3. So these two indexes. So the output will be IM. Right? If I just run this code, so I'm getting the output as IM. What if I give this thing s dot substring and I give 3, 4? Now in this case, the start index is 3 and the ending index is 4. So as I've told you, right, ending index minus 1, it will only extract from beginning index till ending index minus 1. So in this case it will be 3 to 4 minus 1, 3. So it will only extract the third index, which is m. In this case the output will be m, right? So if I run this code, the output is m, right? Now let us see some things where you will get confused in the substring function and some errors about substring function. All right, let us see an example. s.substring, and I do this thing 3, 3. Now 3, 3, right? So the beginning index is 3 and ending index is 3, so it will try to extract the string from 3 to 2. But the thing is, as you have specified the starting index and ending index as same, so basically it will think that, okay, this guy is trying to extract a empty string, because the starting index and beginning index as it is the same. So as the ending index should be minus 1, in this case it will give you an empty string. So in this case it will give you an empty string, right? Now let us see another example. If I do s.substring 3, 2. Now in this case, do you think it will give an empty string? No, because always remember your ending index should be greater than or equals to your starting index. If it is less than your starting index, then it will throw an exception, right? So always remember that rule. Another way, another exception where you can get is s.substring. If I do 3, 8, 8 is actually out of bounds. Why? Because if you see the this string animals 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, so the maximum ending index that you can give is 6, but we have given 8, which is out of bounds. So in this case also you are going to get an exception, right? Let us execute the code. So index out of range minus 1, because this one is actually also out of range, because the ending index cannot be smaller than the starting index. This one will also throw an exception, but as we are encountering an exception over here, the particular code just ends at this particular point. So if I just comment this and if I run the code, then this exception also occurs, string index out of range 8. Let me just comment both of them. Now let's review one more time. Since substring is so tricky, the method returns the string starting from the requested index. If an end index is requested, it stops right there before that index, right? minus 1. Otherwise it will go to the end of the string. Simple as that. In one line I have summarized it. So make sure you don't get confused with the substring. Okay, and if you still have doubts, spend a considerable amount of time in this substring method. Now I don't think there is anything to talk about toUpperCase and toLowerCase methods. If I do s.toUpperCase, then it will just convert it to an uppercase, and if I do s.toLowerCase, then it will just convert all the characters to the lowercase. So animals and animals, right? But you can get confused now. How you can get confused? So if I do, so s was initially lowercase, right? And this is actually true about all the methods that I have been doing. So so it is uppercase over here. Okay, so let me just comment this out and do this thing, s.toUpperCase, and then I try to print the value of s. Now the thing is, s was lowercase previously and I am converting it to uppercase over here. Now if I try to display s, then what do you think will be the output? Will it be completely uppercase or it will be lowercase? Let us see the output and let us judge ourselves. You can see that the output is lowercase, and why? And we have already discussed this property, which is immutability. String is not mutable. Whatever functions you are performing on a string, like substring, indexOf, charAt, it will return you a new thing. So for example, s.substring, if we do, it will return you a new string and you need to store it somewhere. Similar is the case with s.toUpperCase. You need to store it in some other string variable, like string s1 equals to this one. Or if you want to change the same string, you need to reassign it to that particular string s. Right? So this is very, very important to remember, and don't get confused, guys, because a lot of people get confused in this thing and they lose very precious marks. Right? So make sure you don't get confused in the exam and also in real life. Alright, that was all about the uppercase and lowercase. Now let us talk about the equals and the equals ignore case methods. So we still have a couple of more methods to go over. Now let us talk about the equals and the equals ignore case. So equals and equals ignore case. Now the equals method checks whether two string objects contain exactly the same characters in the same order. The difference between equals and equals ignore case is that the equals ignore case method checks whether two strings objects contain the same characters, with the exception that it will convert the character case if needed. It means that even though the character cases are different but the characters are same, then equals ignore case will return true. But that is not true for equals method. Equals method will return true only if both the character cases and the characters are same. So you can just write it over here. So for your summary, both characters and cases should be same, and in this case, equals ignore case, only the characters should be same. Then in that case it will return you a true. Let us see some examples now. Cool. Sorry. Let us see this thing. So sys out and don't worry about the double equals to operator as of now. We're going to see that clearly in equality section, but for now just understand that the equals and equals ignore case actually compares the values, so you don't have to worry about if you have created the string as a new object or like string s equals to a variable, right? It doesn't matter in which way you have created a string. If your values are same, then it will compare it. That's it. So equals and equals ignore case. The equality symbol double equals to, we are going to learn it in a equality section. Now let us see an example. So ABC, this is a string, right? And if I do this thing ABC dot equals, and if I do, for example, capital ABC, so this is one example. Let's go for another example. ABC, capital ABC dot equals, and if I do capital ABC, and then another example where, for example, smaller ABC dot equals, and this is smaller ABC equals ignore case. Let's take equals ignore case, and object, let us take capital ABC. Now what do you think the outputs in this case are? Pretty simple, right? So if you just follow these rules, then in this case it will be false, in this case it will be true, and in this case it should be true. All right. So false, true, true. Right? So very easy to understand. This was all about the equals and the equals ignore case. Alright, now let us talk about the starts with and ends with methods. So starts with and ends with. As the name suggests, the starts with and the ends with methods look at whether the provided value matches that part of the string. So basically in the starts with method, you pass a particular string, and it will check if your particular string starts with that particular value or not, and the ends with, basically it will check if that value actually, if your string ends with that value or not. That's it. Let's see s dot. So in s, right, so s is animals. So if I do s dot starts with, and if I say an, so it starts with an, so it should return true. And if I say sysout s dot ends with, and if I say pq, is animals is ending with pq? No, it is ending with ls or whatever characters, right? So it should return true and it should return false. And let us take another example, s dot ends with mals. Is it true? Yes, it ends with mals. So it should return me true. Let us see, and let me just differentiate it by using another sysout statement, and let us say starts with and ends with example, right? So true, false, true, right, as expected. Starts with and ends with this thing. Now let us talk about another method, contains. And it is also, as the name suggests, the contains method also looks for matches in the string. It isn't particular like starts with or ends with. It means that starts with and ends with check if that particular value starts with the string, like the string starts with that value or ends with that value, right? But contains method just checks if that particular value exists in the string or not. That's it. Now if I say so I'm taking a string abc dot contains, if I say b, right, and if I say sysout another one abc dot contains, and if I say capital B, what do you think the thing is? It is case sensitive, guys. So remember, if that particular string exists as the same case, so this is, in this case, b exists in this particular string, right? So it will return true. But in this case, this b has a different case. Even though it exists as a smaller case, it has a different case. So it will return false and it will return true. If I take another example, s dot contains and animals, right, ls, and it should be true because animals has that string ls. So true, false, true, true, false, true, right? And let us just divide it with another sysout statement, and let's say contains method example. All right, guys, so we are going to see one more method, two more methods actually, and that is replace and trim. So these two methods are remaining. So replace method does a simple search and replace on the string, right? So just replace, so it does a simple search. So basically you have a string in your particular string that you want to replace. Like for example, I want to replace so for example, I have a string, right? I have a string abcd and I want to replace ab with pq. So what will be the output string in this case? pqcd. That's it. That's what your replace method will do, and you will be able to do it. Right? Now let us see this example. Sysout abc dot replace. So old character is a and I want to replace it with a new character which is a. Let us see the output. So previously it was ABC, so all the a characters, right, are being replaced with capital A characters or uppercase A characters. So that's why we are getting capital ABC and capital ABC. ABC dot replace let us say A with A. Now the output will be just the same. The only thing that I want to show you here is that you can replace a single character with another character, or you can also replace a sequence of character. You can replace A, B with, for example, CD. So wherever it will find A, B, it will just replace it with CD. So CD, CC, CD, C, because all the A, Bs are replaced with CDs, right? That's it. That's how the replace function works. Now let us see the last method that we are going to see about it is the trim method, right? Trim method. And it is very easy actually. The trim method removes white space from the beginning and the end of a string. Now in terms of the exam, right, white space consists of spaces along with the /t. /t is a tab space. It will provide you with 4 spaces actually. Tab space is equivalent to 4 spaces, like 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? Now let us see an example. If I have this string, so trim method, we are going to see the trim method and example of trim method, right? Example of trim method. Let us see this thing. So sysout, this is the string that I have /t, and I have ABC, and I have certain spaces between ABC, for example, and then I have a /n, and let us see what does this thing do, right? And let us run the code. So here if you see, there is a space in the front, right, and there is some space over here also, but it is, we cannot see it because, yeah, if you select it, then you will be able to see it. There is a space over here. If I do a trim over here, and if I just run the code, then you can see all the spaces from the front and the back has been removed. That's it. So all the preceding spaces and all the trailing spaces are removed. Right? Alright guys. Now let us talk about one more thing and then our session will be over, which is method chaining. Right? Let us talk about method chaining. So what is actually method chaining? Now method chaining, as the name suggests, you use multiple methods at one go. Let us see an example and then understand what I mean. So let us write this thing. So string start equals to, and I have some spaces. For example, I have some space and then animal and some spaces in the back. Now we want to perform certain operations. First operation I want to perform is to trim this particular string. So I'm just going to say string trimmed equals to start.trimmed. Start.trim. Now what will happen? The spaces will be removed and that string will be removed. Spaces string will be returned and will be stored in this variable trimmed. Cool. Now I want to convert this trimmed string to lowercase. So I'm just going to say string lowercase equals to lowercase string equals to trimmed dot to lowercase. And if I just display it right now, I just displayed it lowercase string, then I should get the desired output, right? But our start is as it is, right, because it hasn't been changed, as it is immutable. So if I just print the start, then it is the same string that is there. So we are doing a series of operations. We are first trimming it and then we are converting it to lowercase. Now what we can do, we can chain all these operations. How do I chain all these operations? Let us see an example. So let me say string result equals to, so the complete result we are going to store in the string. So I'm just creating a variable itself. Now we start from the start string. So start, we first want to trim the string, so we'll just say trim. Then after trimming it, we want to convert it to a lowercase, so dot to lowercase. That's it. So all these things that we did in 3 lines, we are doing it in the 1 line. So we can chain methods. For example, after that we want to search for some string, or we want to calculate a substring, so we can do substring over here, dot substring, right? Then after that you want to search for it, you want to start from 1 and then you want to search for contains, then something else. You can also do that, but contains returns are true or false, so you have to start from a particular, you have to store it in a boolean variable. So what we are doing over here, we are trimming animals, then we are going to convert it to lowercase, and then we are calculating a substring of that animal string, which should start from 1. So we should get animal, so it should start from 1. So the substring that we are getting is NIMAL or NIMAL, right? Because we are starting from the begin index, so the result should be NIMAL. Here you can see, pretty simple, right? We trimmed it. So this is the start particular string. We trimmed it, so all these spaces were removed. Then we converted it to a lowercase, so it became this thing. So it just became this lowercase string, and after that we extracted a string, and the begin index was given as 1, so it will start from 1. So this one is 1, right? This is the starting index, and it will go to the end because we haven't specified a ending index. If we specify ending index, then it will go to ending index -1, right? So this is how we do method chaining in strings, right? So that was all about an introduction to string, guys. This is very, very important to understand all these things that we have learned, and don't get confused, because a lot of people get confused in the aspect of strings, right? Mostly in the immutable property. So make sure you go through this lecture very thoroughly and you don't get confused. So we're going to continue with the lecture of chapter 3 from our next session. Till then, have a good day. Bye bye.